Hi, welcome back. And today we're going to be looking at 1 John 2:15 through 17, a very short paragraph. And I hope that you've translated it and have done your own spade work with the text itself and making some sound observations. So, I entitled this paragraph, Appeal to a Proper Estimation of the World. How Christians are to relate to the world and how they are to think of the world. And most certainly the term world is used in different contexts, different ways, in both the gospel as well as the epistle. So let's start off here. In verse 15, me agapata. Now this is a present active imperative, second person plural. We know it's an imperative because of the negative me on the front. Remember that u is the negative for the indicative mood, and me is the negative for all other verbal forms. So I'm going to translate this as stop loving, and I'll explain why in just a moment, the world, neither the things in the world. Here we have a neuter plural use of the definite article that is used as a substantive, the things in the world. Eon tis agapa. This is a present active subjunctive third person singular of a contract verb. So if anyone or someone should love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Verse 16, hati panta ento kosma, because all or everything which is in the world, the eager or desire of the flesh, the eager desire of the eyes, and the pride of life, and as I'll mention, this can refer to possessions. These things are not from the Father, and what this refers to is the whole of the preceding, are not from the Father, but are from the world. Verse 17, kai ha kosmas paragatai. Now, this comes from parago. That means I pass by. Now, here we have a present middle indicative third person singular. So the world is passing by on its own accord or by itself. That's the use of the middle. And its desire, what was just previously mentioned in the preceding verse. But the one who does the will of God, poion here, present active participle, masculine singular nominative, remains forever or abides forever. Now notice here how the two verbs are juxtaposed here. The world is passing by on its own accord or by itself, whereas the one who does or practices the will of God remains forever. Now, let's just go back again to the context. In the preceding paragraph, do you remember all of the grand affirmations, the immense privileges that the evangelist had underscored to his readers, whether they be fathers or young men or little children? Tremendous privileges. So, I would see here the immense privileges of the preceding paragraph serve as the grounds that leads to the proper conclusion, that is a proper estimation of the world as well as God's love. Now, in this brief paragraph, the term cosmos is used 6 times. Now, going back to the present imperative that is negated, Usually this means stop doing something that you are already doing, instead of never do such and such a thing. That would be the aorist imperative. So that's why I would translate it as stop loving the world. Now let me just give another reference here to where we see a present imperative that's negated. In John 20, where we have Mary who is talking with the resurrected Jesus in conversation, and many of the translations have do not touch me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. So it looks like from just that translation she is prohibited from doing something, whereas just in the prior chapter or in the same context, Jesus invites Thomas to touch him. That is a present imperative that's negated, and I would suggest to you that it means there, stop holding on to me the way that you have in the past. Things are altogether different now. We can also observe a progression from the world to the things that are in the world. Another observation, a conditional cause-effect between someone loving the world and the absence of the love of God in that person. Here is the effect. The love of the Father is not in this one. Now, the term love of the Father can be an objective genitive, meaning a love for God or love for the Father, while a subjective genitive would mean God's love. So I'm inclined to go with God's love because just previously in the same chapter, it clearly means God's love instead of love for God. So we find down here a principle that coexistence of love for the world and God's love cannot coexist at the same time in the same person. That is, they crowd each other out. And then we have an explanation for why the love of the world and God's love cannot coexist. And that is found in this conjunction, hati, because. Now in 2:16, the more general, that's a statement, all the things that are in the world, is particularized with three things. So here's the general right here. Hatipan ta'en to cosmo, all the things that are in the world. And then this is followed by some particulars. The eager desire of the flesh, meaning flesh that likes itself, to feed its own desire. The eager desire of the eyes can well be greed as well as lust. And down here, he aladzanea to biu, arrogance in one's possessions. Sort of a rash sort of independence. Or maybe in our culture to think of it as a self-made person. Now, we also find here a contrast in terms of the origin of the previous three attitudes and vices. And these would be regarded here as genitives of origin or source. All three items originate from the world, and we could also say world system. They don't originate from God. So we have ektu patros, genitive of origin, ektu kosmou, also a genitive of origin. Then in verse 17 we have a contrast in terms of what is impermanent and what is permanent. And we already looked here at the switch here from something impermanent, passing away, in the middle voice by its own accord, that is juxtaposed with this entire expression, remains forever. So John really sees the world somewhat on the verge of dissolution and decay and passing away. Now, what matters today? The immense privileges that John has just stated of Christians leads to the appeal to reject the world and world system as the source of one's life, and then fully embrace God's love for them. John rejects a love for the world and world system. He doesn't reject living in the world. Elsewhere, it's expressed in the New Testament to be in the world, but not of the world. And let me suggest here something from Westcott, sort of an old commentary, but certainly some grand statements. In moral and spiritual things, there's a law of equilibrium. Nothing rises higher than its source. The desire of things earthly as ends in and of themselves comes from the world and is bounded by the world. It is therefore incompatible with the love of the Father. Now we can ask some points of application here. What do these texts say about consumerism that we can think of as the desire for more, greed, an arrogant independence, and, quote, the American dream? And finally, we think in our own culture of various status markers, whether kids are in elementary school, junior high school, college, on into the business world, etc. There are all kinds of status markers or props of success to the effect that an image embodies a person. And we constantly are bombarded with this in advertising, aren't we? So we have status markers, props of success, but certainly may have no internal substance. God's love, that's what he's accentuating here. So what is external versus what is internal in terms of substance. So thanks.